On ordinance, charters, and rules to order. I'm Councilor Ferrillo, acting as Chairman Pro Tem. With me on the committee is Councilor Demers, who is not here. Councilor Mercer Bruin is not here. Councilor Lou DeMando, who is present, and Councilor Charles Fiola, who is present.
Make a motion, first of all, for the reading and approval of minutes for the meeting of August 11th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Make a motion to take the agenda out of order and take line item 3 first.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, order amending Title 6 of the Animal Control Section 6.2, 6.4, and 6.7 related to dog violations, penalties, and enforcement. With us tonight is Attorney Max Lombardi and Officer Jay Donovan, Lieutenant David McGee for the Woburn Police Department.
Thank you. As you stated, the animal control officer is here. He made this request. We agreed with it. Therefore, I drafted the language that is in front of you. The basic problem that he's having is that in the current wording of the zoning code, of this code, is that service dogs, no one has to pick up after them. And it's becoming a problem because everybody just says they have a service dog. So I spoke with Tim Donovan and the Handicap Commission. He was in agreement with this particular provision, which says that if you're physically able to pick up after your animal, that you should do it, and there should be a fine if you are not. The only other provisions we've asked for is a change in the fining to increase to get more current. It's been a long time, I think, that's been increased. So we're going up from 25 to 50 for the first offense, 50 to 100, and 75 to 150. And that's no longer in per year. It's just first, second, third offense, whenever it occurs. So the three of us are here. If I have any questions for Lieutenant McGee or Jay Donovan, I would be glad to answer.
Councilor DeMambro.
City Solicitor Savati. So if a person has a service dog and our dog officer is there and it's apparent that the dog has, had an issue and there's waste on the grounds, how do we prove that the person can or cannot pick up the waste in accordance to whatever their abilities might be? And second of all, how do we enforce the fine structure? If a fine was to be issued, how is it enforced and looked after and followed through so that they pay the $50 or the $100?
Sure. I'll answer the second part first. I think there's a provision for him to take them to court next door. Is that correct, Jay? Which I believe they just did, and one someone who appealed that particular provision. And if you want to speak to how you're going to determine whether, it's going to be somewhat of a honor system, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
And he's going to have some discretion to say this person obviously can't pick it up, or if they want to appeal it, they'll be able to appeal that provision of it as well, to go in and say we're not physically able. But I don't think it's going to be too often a case where he can't make that determination.
Right. Yeah. I've been a police officer for 32 years. This was the first time. We had an individual just because it was in there and said this whole thing shouldn't apply to him, and he was physically able to do it, but he refused to do it. He was actually doing it on purpose in front of people's houses. And so I don't see issues going forward with this. This was pretty much for one individual that was, he was physically able to do it, but he was not doing it.
Understandable. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? What's the will of the committee?
Motion to send it out, ought to pass.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
You're not staying?
I'm not staying. I've seen Joe at work.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Pulte Homes of New England LLC, proposed zoning amendment to amend section 28, technology and business mixed-use overlay district to the technology and business residential mixed-use overlay district, as well as other amendments to section 28. Before we start, I have a communication from Darlene Mercer Bruin that I'd like to read into the record.
Make a motion to accept that, make part of the permanent record.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Dear Gordon, if you could read the following into the record this evening, I would be most grateful. Unfortunately, I cannot attend tonight's committee meeting with the new date due to the snowstorm on Monday. I'm writing to request the ordinance committee consider keeping the Pulte Homes matter in committee this evening. I have many concerns with the changes as proposed, and as one of the original authors of the T-Bod, I respectfully request the matter remain in committee as I cannot attend due to prior commitments. With gratitude, Darlene Mercer Bruin, Ward 5 City Councilor. I also have documents which received from Councilor Tabi dated February 20th.
Make a motion to accept all of the correspondence from Attorney Tavi to make part of the permanent record.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I also have a document from the Woburn Police Department, a call log for the Pulte of the Vale, the project over there, roughly 52 pages.
Make a motion to accept the call logs from the fire police log. I make a part of the permanent record.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Tavi?
Yes, thank you. So with me this evening is Mark Mastriani, Vice President of Land Planning and Entitlement, Dickey, Executive Vice President of Lega McFall, one of the partners, Sam Pohl, one of the Senior Vice Presidents and Partners in Lega McFall, Bob Nagy of VHP, and Matt Leidner of Civil Design. So what I wanted to do is to update everyone on the permitting status, go through at a high level and respond to the, some of the questions that came up at the public hearing. And then, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, who's going to talk about the state of the life science market. And then we can get into your questions, specific questions. So, Planning Board held two public hearings, one on January 13th and one on February 10th. They did forward a favorable recommendation to this council. City Council public hearing began on January 20th, and that was continued to next Tuesday. So just as a reminder to everyone, this is a zoning amendment process and not a special permit process. So many of the questions that have come up, I understand them. When you do a zoning amendment, the questions do come up. But, you know, this is a two-step process, zoning amendment and then special permit. So looking at some of the issues that came up at the public hearing, the first one had to do with affordable units. And again, I'm just going to speak at a high level. Mark can talk about affordable units in more detail. Talk about the taxes. Sam can talk about the taxes. Rob can talk about traffic, and Matt can talk about utilities. I just want to get the issues out that came up at the public hearing. So there was a concern about lack of affordable units. We submitted an amendment that would require up to 10% of the units to be affordable. And then in addition, Pulte agrees to the extent, I just want to get the language correct, permitted by EHOLC will provide up to 70% of the affordable units, which would total 35, be provided local preference under the state's local preference program, which includes eligible Woburn residents. One of the other issues that came up was that this proposal doesn't offer any variety of housing to the city of Woburn. Well, this certainly does. If you look at the December 2025 draft of the housing production plan, one of the things that the consultant suggests is that over the next 5 years, and I'm going to read from the report, Woburn needs the broad range of housing types available in the city. The goal is to provide more options so that residents can find housing that fits their needs and stay in the community as their lives change. So the Del Webb proposal does meet that goal, and this is the first 55-plus development for sale units in the city of Woburn. The only other 55-plus residential project in the city was the conversion of St. Joseph's Church to a handful of residential units that are for rent. This is a for sale unit. So one of the other issues that came up was the density is too much. Okay, the property is located on 33.55 acres, and that results in 15 units per acre. So let's look at Station 316 at 316 New Boston Street. 425 units, within 75, 80 units of this proposal. That density, those units are on 16.16 acres. That density is 26.29 units per acre. Located right at the bridge that's going over the tracks. A very high traffic volume area that no one had an issue with at that time. The Avalon project at Woburn Village is 350 units on 5.37 acres. That density is 65.17 units per acre. And then the last one is the Emblem, I think it's a different name now, but at 120 Commerce Way, that's 290 units on 3.38 acres. The density is 86 units per acre. There also was a concern raised about police and fire impacts. I think Councilor Viola brought that up and the request call logs from the lane. And we want to emphasize again that the Del Webb is not an assisted living community or a nursing home. Okay, these are for sale condominium units that I'm guessing, I'm going to leave Chuck and Lou out because I'm not sure, and Rob, who's reached the age of 55.
I qualify.
That most of us could buy a unit and live in. So it's not a nursing home. We did provide you with an emergency service department assessment that was prepared by Fugere Planning and Development that we think should address your concerns. And if we get into this report, then we can respond to this as well. But the calls to the Delaney are really not a sort of fair comparison to what would happen at this development. On the traffic concern, I'll leave the specific, answers that Rob can respond to questions, but the Phase 1 development would create 3,522 daily trips. The Del Webb proposal is at 1,638 daily trips. Then on the issue of the real estate taxes, the projected real estate taxes for the Del Webb, I want to go over those right now. In a minute, Rob Dickey will address the market of the life science industry. But going back to when the city of Woburn bought Kraft Foods in 2018, the city was receiving approximately $350,000 per year in taxes. Then when Mayor Galvin, who was the author of the T-Bond, brought the T-Bond forward in 2019, the estimated taxes for the complete build-out of the T-Bond at the time was $5 million to $6 million. And these figures, you can go back to the city council meeting notes back at that time, and those figures are what was projected and what was presented to the city council. Presently, the taxes that are paid to the city of Woburn are as follows. Monfield Land is paying about $270,000 per year for the vacant land that's there. LCS is paying $650,000 per year. And the Pulte at Highland at Vale, the homeowners there are paying about $1.5 million. So with Pulte's proposed Del Webb project, using the residential mill rate of $9.15 per thousand, that would be at full bill $3.1 million. Take out what Monfield Land is paying now, you've got a net of about $2.8 million. Adding that to what's already being collected, you're at $4.95 million, which is close to the original projections of $5 million to $6 million. So those were the, sort of big issues that came up during the public hearing. What I'd like to do now is turn it over to Rob, who could go through and give you an overview of the life science month at this time.
Great. Thank you for your time. I think I'll just start by saying that Sam and I, as partners at Leggett, when this project was initiated and we purchased it in those late teens, 2018, 2019 timeframe, and put forth the original plan and permits, the life science market, the R&D suburban market for 5 and 6 story life science buildings to support the life science industry in this market. It was a very different time. There was a supply-demand imbalance that favored the demand side. There was more demand than there was supply, and that only accelerated into the COVID timeframe when you had Moderna, Pfizer, a number of local companies that were in high demand, were increasing their footprint, increasing their manufacturing locally. And that supply-demand imbalance really continued through kind of the end of 21, and then it tipped the other direction. And two things really happened. One is the development industry got overzealous, a lot of money poured into the life science real estate side, and there was an overbuild. But maybe most importantly, there was a significant fall off in the demand. So the demand peaked in a given year around 2019, 2021. It peaked at around 6 million square feet of demand a year on average during that 3-year period. And today that same demand is 1.5 million against an overall supply in the broader marketplace. This would be downtown Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, the suburbs out to 495. That whole market has a supply vacancy of 18 million square feet. So we have a current demand of 1.5 million against a supply of 18 million. That the good news is there's not going to be anything new built in the next several years, given the oversupply. The bad news is until that demand picks up, we're looking at a decade plus of absorption before new construction is justified. Resulting from that supply-demand imbalance, a few other things have happened. Rents have fallen, so it's a tenant's market. And given the amount of supply out there, and this is not just supply in research, it's supply in special purpose manufacturing buildings that have been built in Burlington and in this North Market. And those buildings are available to tenants that want them. They'll price them to grab those tenants. It'll lower their price, and those lowered prices will not justify new construction. So where it leaves us at the Vale, again, this is Sam and my business, so we would certainly prefer to be building and developing that parcel ourselves. That's the business we're in. It's a product we like and we know well. But at the moment, and we don't think for a long time, probably more like 10 years, we're going to be in a position to build that product. So we're, thus the decision to engage with Pulte when they showed interest in the property. I think, you can also look around just in terms of, I think as part of what was sent to you by the planning board, there's an interesting article about what's going on in the suburbs with office parks and conversion to residential. So that's certainly a trend that we see in the commercial side of our industry. I would also add that there have been a few noteworthy life science deals of late. There haven't been many. One of them, which is fairly near to here, is the decision by a company up in Andover to come down and absorb all of Biomed's building in Somerville. So there are 2 new lab buildings right along the highway on the Assembly Square side, right against the highway. There's a goldish 16-story building, and then there's a lower rise sort of blue and gray glass building. That building is 450,000 square feet. Transmedics, it's coming down from Andover. They're growing into that facility. They're leasing it at in the 40s triple net. They are, which is probably about $40 less than what the market was when they developed that property. And the developer in that case will pay off the debt, they'll lose all their equity. And from a tax standpoint, Somerville is getting a fairly lengthy tax break to Transmedics as a tenant in that building. So there's a major tax deferral on that project related to trying to attract them to that market. So that's sort of the state of play in the current market. Whether it, we hope it'll improve. We don't know when. There are a lot of factors impacting this region from a life science standpoint with, cuts to NIH grants in Washington, uncertainty around FDA approvals. So this is a life science market right now that's kind of in recovery, and it's difficult to know when that full recovery occurs. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Motion,
Stay inside first. You have anything?
I'm good right now. Make a motion to open it up to the rest of the committee members. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Council Papalato?
Thank you for coming out and thanks for the discussion we had the other day. Just a couple of clarifications. When you talked about the number of units for low income housing, what was the number?
10% of 504, which would be 50.
Okay,
And then 35 of those would be local preference would be EOLHC regulations.
okay. And then the other thing that we talked about the other day that I wasn't clear on at the end, when we talked about that 10%, were there any age 55 restrictions on those as well? Are there any other rules that fall into that?
Yep, I'm gonna have Mark address that.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
thanks. Mark Mastriani with Pulte Homes. So, just to clarify, all of the units at the proposed Del Webb would be age restricted. So every unit, regardless of whether it's market rate or affordable, would be age restricted, and one occupant would have to be 55 years of age or older. So for both market rate and affordables, that does not change. The only thing that changes is on the affordable units, the state does not let you restrict kids. So for the 10%, the 50 affordable units, the clause that says no permanent resident can be 18 years of age or younger cannot apply to those affordable units. But the units are still age restricted, and the likelihood of getting any kids in those 50 AFUs is very, very small. It would be very insignificant or de minimis, if any.
Okay, all right, thank you. I have some other questions,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
there's others that want to ask.
You have the floor.
Okay. Some of this pertains directly to what you were saying, and some of it pertains to our own city tax structure. So you answered a bunch of these already. So these units, there's additional police, fire, maybe a small amount of schools as well. So that's something that has to be factored in. We're all well aware of the whole situation around the commercial market right now, and it's bleak. Everything you said, I lived it. Who did I speak with the other day with you, Joe? You were the one that was on the phone. Okay, so I totally get what you're saying, but I also think that I don't have a crystal ball, and nobody knows what's going to happen 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now. But I do know that things work in cycles, and it's going to come back. The question is when. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? 20 years? At some point, that is going to resurface, and it's going to be usable. I mean, we're in the greatest location you could have between 128 and 93 there. It's a great spot. It's the desirable location when the dust starts to settle and people want to use these types of facilities, whatever gets built there. That would be a preferable lot, I would suspect. The other thing is I checked on different types of businesses within Woburn, and 6 or 7 years ago, the retail was very, very weak, and it was a bleak market in the city of Woburn. And what's happened since then is it turned 180 degrees. And so the point I'm making there is things change, things are bleak, things look better, things come full circle. So, that's just an example of something that it flipped, this can flip at some point, and it will flip.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
On that? So, if there's a report on that, if you could share that with us, that would be great, because I do represent a number of shopping center owners who try to rent retail space, and they can't find retailers. Case in point, 103 Commerce Way. They recently, I guess, Wonder Restaurant came before this council because they can't find a retailer to take over the space.
Yeah.
There's a Jersey Mike's that's gonna be coming in because they can't rent the retail space. So I'd like, it would be helpful. if we could
Yeah, I'll try and track that down
Yeah.
for you, for sure. Recent tax increases that we've had the last couple of years, it's not sustainable to Woburn residents. It's just clearly not. 75% of the taxes that we collect come from residential. 10% come from commercial. And then there's, the rest of it is free space and open space, and I don't know, there's some small pieces. But it's 75% is currently residential. So when we go through that, and we're getting more and more of it is coming at us from a residential standpoint with what's happening in the state between MBTA and, ADUs and other things that are happening out there. So the residential percentage, the bubble starts here and it just keeps getting bigger. And this is gonna add on another 504 units to it. The more we add to the residential, the more we add to the residential tax base, and we're decreasing the commercial base, because this is transferring from commercial to residential. So this bubble is getting bigger over here on the residential side. Well, on the commercial side, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what that means is, when we start to reclassify taxes next time through, when we did that, everyone had the look of horror on their face when we saw what was happening. And what that means is, we're gonna be able to push a bigger number to a smaller population. And when we do that, we're not gonna get the relief that we have been getting. It's gonna be less than what we had, because there's more residential and there's less commercial. So all the numbers you mentioned on taxes, I have no qualm with that at all, but that's not the whole picture. There's this other side component to this. Budgets are gonna keep increasing. There's no stopping it. It's the cost of doing business goes up, contracts go up, salaries go up. There's no way to stop all that. It's gonna keep going. And there's only two ways that I'm aware of that we can stop that, is we need to reduce spending. And I'm talking about other budget ads, that's one thing. And we control that to a degree, because nothing gets approved unless we approve it. And nothing can go forward on the budget unless we approve it. So we need to do a better job collectively to put our hands around that and slow that down. And the other thing is the commercial tax base. If that doesn't increase, we're gonna see worse increases than what we've had already. And we sat at a meeting the other day and we talked about that exact topic. We need to get the commercial base to go bigger. And if we're shrinking the commercial base, we're basically doing the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So those are the kind of points that I wanted to make, and I'll run that document down for you, best I can.
And all good comments.
Yeah.
Like our figures, you understand our figures. But this thing about, the business recycling, it's a big assumption to assume that 10 years from now, this property's still gonna be available, and then someone's gonna develop life science on that. You don't know what's gonna happen to the property.
No crystal ball, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
President Trevor?
Thank you. Attorney Tarby, I know we've talked about this, but this meeting now is in regards to the zoning amendment, right? We're not talking about the special permit. This is in regards to the zoning amendment, not the special permit.
Yep.
But at the same time, this zoning amendment is specifically tied to that special permit. I want to remind the council that if we approve, not saying we are, but if we approve this zoning amendment as it stands, yes, we have another bite at the apple at the special permit, but if we deny their special permit, they do have the ability to appeal that denial, right? So all I'm saying is we don't want to just rubber it, and I don't think this is what we're going to do. We certainly don't want to rubber stamp this zoning amendment and say, oh, we'll deal with it at special permit time, right? Because they have appeal rights. We can certainly deny it at special permit, but they can appeal our decision and we can lose in court, right? So we shouldn't downplay the fact that the zoning amendment is just step one to allow the special permit conversation. I know they're separate, but at the same time, they need to be discussed concurrently. Attorney Carey, you and I spoke about this. There's absolutely no way, shape, or form that I'm going to support 504 units there. Not one bit of it.
For what reasons?
It's too large. I don't care. I wasn't part of the council that approved the life sciences. It's too large. It's 504 units. You talk to every citizen, every resident in the city of Woburn. Not one person approves 504 units. I don't think anyone on this council does. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm kind of putting words in other people's mouths, but I also talked to you about, I'd be a little bit more open to a conversation if we had some first floor or first level commercial space, not life science, commercial space. That is a community in and of itself. With the developments above, with what's being asked below. If something was developed, a restaurant, a coffee shop, a barber shop, some sort of first floor commercial that can service that area, it will naturally reduce the unit amounts from 504 to something else. We get some residential tax, we get some commercial. And I don't understand why that's not more of a discussion, but I will not support 504 units. And I'm going to be honest, Pulte, this is directed to you guys. Let's not play games. But we want to know, what is your bottom number? What is the amount of units that you guys are comfortable putting in there? Let's not play games. Give us your number, right? Because at one point we're gonna stop having the conversation. If it doesn't work for you guys, your bottom number, I'm just using a random number, is 400. If it doesn't work for us at your bottom number, then the conversation just stops. Why are we playing games? You know, let's just have the frank conversation. We don't need the negotiations back and forth. You guys know it, you're a smart organization. You do a lot of business, you're very successful. Let's stop playing games, let's have the conversation. What is your bottom number? And then let's have a conversation between the council and your attorney, and we can see if we make something work. But 504 units, I want to move it.
I'd like to get back to the proposed retail or coffee shop. Who's gonna rent first floor space? You can't even see the first floor space from the highway. You know, it would have to be subsidized by the property owner. You're not gonna find a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks or another restaurant to go in there.
We're talking, how many units, how many townhouses do you have up there, Pulte?
Townhouses, there's 75 townhouses.
75 townhouses that, how many units are in? I mean, how many bedrooms are in each unit roughly?
There's 3 bedrooms in each of the townhouses.
So we're assuming that there's roughly 3 or 4 people per unit, roughly. You've got a couple hundred people there. You got the assisted living there. I know they're not sitting there kind of driving their race cars down to the bottom of the hill, but then you got some units that are going to be developed potentially on top of or next to that commercial space. You have close to over 1,000 people just in that small area. You are right off the highway. Let's be realistic. There's absolutely no way that something couldn't be developed where there's a sign that shows off the highway that there's a X restaurant there, some sort of restaurant. If it's being built there, it's right off of Montville Ave. Step back a little bit. The people within Woburn are going to know that this restaurant exists. We can't dictate how that restaurant markets to the city, right? But let's do some advertising. I don't think that that's a valid reason not to put commercial space because it's set back lower than the highway. What about the businesses? What about the restaurants downtown in Woburn or outside of like on some random street in Woburn? They're not visible from the highway. What does that really matter? You know, you have a population within that Vale community of over 1,000 people, potentially. We're talking 300, I would assume, I'm just making an assumption, of over 300 units potentially, instead of 5, right? At 2 bedrooms apiece, let's call it 600 people there. Plus the couple hundred people up there, plus the assisted living, plus the people that are visiting them there. You got people even in that community itself that would visit these places. Have you, and you don't have to do this, but has there been any conversation with the people that live up in the Vale on not necessarily what they want to see down there, but if they think it's a good idea to have some sort of mixed use commercial down there? You know what I mean? Almost like its own community meeting. Has there been any conversation on what?
Yeah, so I held a community meeting with the Highland and Vale homeowners a few weeks ago, and there was probably 50 of the units that attended. We presented the plan, and we presented the proposal, and, you know, overall, the feeling was that they were supportive of the change, and they thought that, you know, a residential use adjacent to their homes would be favorable instead of driving through a life sciences or a commercial type of product. So the overall feeling from the homeowners I got was pretty favorable.
I'm gonna put Samantha on the spot for a quick second.
Okay.
I believe you and I had a conversation recently, that there was a conversation with some people down at the Vale, and the conversation came up on what they would like to see down there, and that was at least some people that mentioned.
Yeah, I by no means did we hold a community meeting. So just to be really, really clear, certainly I've heard anecdotally from folks, everybody wants to get rid of the dirt pile. There's not a person who likes to drive through that. There's no doubt about that. I don't think there's resistance to some residential. I didn't hear any saying that's a horrible idea. I've heard pretty consistently, they really want they want a spa, they want a restaurant, they want some of the commercial space. That's the anecdotal feedback. Not asking about the specific project, because that's not what I was there doing, but just came up in conversation with a few people that I was chatting with. They would frequent it. It's sort of what the conversations were, but by no means a significant level of input. It was sort of an ad hoc.
It's not like we got feedback from 1,000 people, right? But it is feedback. And listen, I support Council Papalato. We need to. I love the idea of raising revenue and growth, you know what I mean? It helps offset the ever-growing budget that is just inevitable to run a large-scale city with just contractual agreements between maintenance of buildings and, you know, everything. That's just going to continue to go up, and I don't think we spend erratically. I think we're very fiscally responsible. It's just things cost money. So it's appealing to have the new growth. But doesn't mean we have to run and accept the first thing that comes to our mind. Now, would I support waiting 10 years for life sciences to come back? No. I don't think anybody here does. But like Council Papalato said, we don't have a crystal ball. You know what I mean? I think, could something be worked out? Potentially. But just at its current value, at its current rate of 504 units for the zoning amendment, I can't support it. But again, I'm one member of 9, right? So I can certainly be outvoted, but I'm good for now. Thank you.
Council Dillon?
Thank you. For the most part, I'm going to keep my powder dry till we get into this a little bit, but just a couple points I'd like to bring up. One is, I think the petitioner does have some merit here. Now, are the units 504? Can that be scaled back some? Yes, and I appreciate Councilor Papalato doing a lot of the research, and I know he's done it because I ran into the same sources of information that he was previously there before I got there, so thank you for that. But we also, doesn't take much to drive through our own city, Wildwood, Commerce Ave, and see the full lease
the vacant buildings, and they're not vacant for 6 months. Some of these places have been vacant for years. We need to do something sooner rather than later. We have to look at the scale of what we're okaying and what it's going to bring in. Now, if these were apartments, I'd be the first one saying, don't even waste my time, because I truly feel with what's built, with what's special permitted to us, and even what some of them that are permitted, I think we have enough apartments. This is home ownership. The impact this is going to have compared to what we already okayed, I think it really takes some serious consideration to look at it. And I'm gonna leave it at that because I could go on for another half an hour with the information I have. But as I say, I'm gonna save that for later. But I think it's important to look at what we have to deal with in the city right now, the time frame we have to try to get some tax revenue, and the impact of what's in front of us today and what we already okayed previously there. What is the scale of the difference? And before I give up my time, I will bring up one point. Part of my job before I retired was to scope out foreclosures and such, and old habits are hard to die. Sunday's Herald, we have Core Boston Office Investment, and it is 31 St. James Ave, and that is 540,000 square feet of office space going up for foreclosure on March 10th. Right above that is Canton, Mass, and that is 267,000 square feet of office space going up for auction on March 12th. Just my point. Somewhat unusual to see big parcels like that going up for foreclosure. Our Cummings property just purchased a property out in Beverly, large scale, I don't know how many thousand square feet, and in the $5 million range. And when it was originally built or sold, it was in the, I believe it was 40 million in that range. So my point is, we gotta go with what the market drives. We don't drive the market. And I'll save the rest of my comments for later. Thank you.
Councilor Viola?
Thank you. Joe, just to expunge a little bit on the emergency service department assessment that you have here.
Yep.
If we go to page 2, with projected expenses increases, so for table 3, we're projecting that expenses for the police department will be increased to about $200,000.
Yeah.
So that would be including the 99,000 that's right now. We would be adding another 100,000 from your development going in. Is that correct?
No, I think my understanding of this memo that Fougere did is that he estimated the number of annual police calls to the 504 proposed Del Webb community. And he projected an estimated 223 calls. And he put some values on that based on his conversation with the police department and some other research he did and his experience. And then he estimated the cost to be $99,000. And then to be conservative, he doubled it and increased it to $200,000 to be overly conservative. And he used that number when he was doing the physical impact analysis, when he was generating, the Pulte Del Webb would generate over $3 million in tax revenue gross annually. And then in the report, he was looking at the different costs to the city. And one of those was police. And, based on his calls and his research, he estimated $99,000, but he doubled it for $200,000 in order to be overly conservative for the means of reporting to the city. So,
Okay.
That's
And
where the
then,
200,000 came from.
then to further on that, so table 4 then would estimate the cost for fire and EMS would go to 274,992 roughly, correct?
Yeah, so that's right. And then he factored in the EMS and he came out with a total cost to the city of 250,000, which he then put in the table here to offset the revenue generated by the taxes, and he was subtracting out the estimated costs to the city to arrive at a net positive benefit to the city of, and that's how we got to the $2.6 million, every year annually once built out. If could I just take 1 minute? I think it's important. So this data that the police department provided is really helpful. But I do think it's truly, it's all about the Delaney. And the Delaney up there is like Joe mentioned, there's some nursing home component, there's a memory care component. It's age 62 plus, it's assisted living, basically. And what we're proposing is an age restricted development, age 55 plus and older, which is also known as like an active adult neighborhood, and which is why we have all of the walking network and the amenities and the, because they're really active adults. They're not at the life stage of assisted living and nursing home and memory care. Those are really, that's the next step. But what Mark Fougere did in his report is he called around to other Pulte developments that are very similar in type of style of home and age of development. So to arrive at these estimated calls, instead of using the Delaney numbers, because it's really a different use and really not applicable, he called North Reading and got the data from Martin's Landing, which is a 502 unit age restricted community just up 93 in North Reading. And then he called Reading and has the actual data from Reading Woods, which is another garden style age restricted community right in Reading. And then he also got data from Westboro, where we're currently building another Del Webb there. That's 700 units and 400 units are built and occupied. And he has actual data from the Westboro Fire Department and Police Department on the calls of those age-restricted communities. Very, very similar to what we're proposing here. And that's where he got his data of the calls that he used in the report. And then again, he took those calls and then he doubled it to be conservative. So we were really trying to provide the city a realistic, physical benefit that you guys could rely on, and that we felt confident in providing, that it's accurate and very reasonable. I mean, I know Joe mentioned that the city of Woburn doesn't have any other age-restricted housing developments, but usually when we come into other towns and cities, it's really a windfall. It's what they beg us to do, because it's, this site right now isn't really generating very many taxes, and and what we're proposing is going to provide a lot of residential taxes over a long period of time, year after year, with very little service costs to the city. And usually a lot of towns and cities, that's what they ask us for. And so we were really excited to have the opportunity to provide this to the city at this location. So we're hoping we can continue to work with you guys, because we just feel like this is such a great fit for all of us.
I could see where this could be beneficial to the city, because it would be 55 plus and you wouldn't have kids going to schools. However, I still think 504 units, that's too much of an ask for up there. As well as I still think it'd be a drain on city services, police, fire. I mean, we can go over as much as we're going on numbers here, but you never know what's going to happen. Police, fire calls. And I would also, as President Toro said, I'd like to see some type of commercial base up there as well, if we could, on the first floor, just to add into this. But thank you.
Just before we move off of the public safety, just a brief look at this. This isn't just redundant to the Delaney. If you read it line by line, this is redundant, even though it's redacted, redundant to the specific issue. These are multiple frequent flyers is what we used to call them when I was working. These are going to the same people in the same place, time and time and time again, which I think shows this as grossly inflated numbers of calls. They're going to the same person. If in the first 10 pages, they go to the same place 4 times in the first 10 pages for the same issue, for the same person. They've even made a log note that says second time in 12 hours for same issue. So just in support of the numbers, I think we need to dig deeper into those, for both sides' benefits.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I just, for the record, I just wanted to bring the same issues up before, some resident, finds the report and says, oh, there's 52 pages of calls, but, if you go through them, 78-year-old male with catheter issue, elderly female with a fall, another female fall, catheter issue, altered mental state, sudden death, unresponsive but breathing, out of control, 79-year-old female patient, another catheter issue, another altered mental state of a 74-year-old person, male patient with rectal bleeding, another catheter issue. So they're not the type of calls you're going to see to, the 55 and over. So
Councilor Vaughn, sorry,
Thank you. This may or may not help Councilor Viola feel a little more comfortable. I'm going to ask the question. What is already previously in place there, if we look at it, is 1,000,000 feet of life science, 130,256 square feet of biomanufacturing, as well as 10,000 square feet of retail and restaurant, and 62,000 square feet of medical office building. Again, what's already been said, none of us have a crystal ball, but that seems like a lot that we already approved. That probably would be a strain on resources. Strain's maybe not the right word. Maybe it is the right word, a strain on resources. So I think the important thing here that we should do as well is, in a perfect world, we wouldn't be here. That would already be in place or being built, and we already okayed it. Is there any merit to look at what we already okayed and what we're trying to do now and compare the two and see which is more detrimental to the community and to our police and fire for services? Just trying to point that out. Thank you.
Councilor DeMembro?
So, up in North Woburn, I have a lot of industry. And I also have a lot of fall lease signs. To Councilor Dillon's point, there's fall lease signs all over the place in the industrial parks. They're on Commerce Way, Presidential, New Boston, Industrial Parkway, Olympia Avenue, Wildwood. Some of these facilities are over 250,000 square feet. They've been laying dormant for the better part of 3 or 4 years now. You have parcels of land up on Washington Street. There's the old Crest Buick place. That's been laying dormant for decades. They've mowed that lot down now and cleared it 2 or 3 times. Weeds and trees that have grown through the hot top. I'm not necessarily sure we need any more commercial space. It's come to my attention that even Cummings Property has a lot of gaps in their commercial component. There's also rumors that there's a very large company up in North Woburn that's going to be moving out of state. Just made the news that Boston Metals is shutting down. They're going to lay off 71 people. No one does have a crystal ball, but we're in the reality of now. And we have to realize where we're at now. Again, I understand the 504 units, but it's also a residential over 55 community, and it's a complex. You already have residential there that was already approved. You have townhouses. You also have 55 or older plus assisted living in a nursing home up on the top of that hill. I can tell you for a fact where I live, 210 School Street, I overlook the rooftops of 7 or 8 buildings. I'm not necessarily sure somebody wants to pay 7 digits for a townhouse and overlook the mechanicals on the rooftops of a commercial building. I think that's going to take and sink whatever you wanna sell on the top of that hill in the future. So you have to look at that component. There's also the noise component that goes along with commercial, as well as light commercial. You got trucks, deliveries, dock plates, backup beepers, dumpsters, you know, the banging and clanging of dumpsters at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because your carting services, they operate at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning so they can hit as many cans as they can before the traffic starts increasing around the city. It's safer for them as well as they can hustle more cans in those hours. Problem is, it's a pain for the residents that live near it. We hear it all the time. On the weekends, you also have, you know, your landscapers with the weed whackers and the blowers and everything else. I'm not necessarily sure you want to take a residential complex and put a light commercial base down below. One, it is off the beaten path. I'm not necessarily sure you want to take and put billboard marquees with neon signs. I can tell you for fact, the neon sign that's over adjacent to the Northern Bank and Trust building, I can see from my windows in my house. That rolls 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can see it from my kitchen. So I'm not necessarily sure billboard marquees are the answer, unless people want that bright light, you know, shining into their windows, you know, all hours of the day and night. If there was some sort of a component going in there, 55 or older, I understand again the 504 units. And I understand Council Papalato's, I've brought this up numerous times, you know, with the commercial base and the industrial base. Yes, we do make more taxes, we do make more revenue. But we also have to take into account, we bring this residential component to the city, you also have property tax, excise tax, water and sewer. And let's not mention, these people are gonna spend money in the community. They're gonna gas up at the end of Hill Street. They're gonna go to McDonald's, especially if they're 55 or older. My father loved McDonald's after he retired. He loved that 99-cent menu. So you got the Anton Cleaners, you got the Pocari's, you've got Market Basket. There's a volume of monies that will be spent within our community. So there's also that, you know, that component by which, you know, certain businesses are gonna take and they're gonna profit from. I'm not necessarily sure we want to keep looking at building more commercial and industrial. There are areas in Woburn, these buildings could be torn down and rebuilt. We have no takers. We've all been sitting on the council now for quite a few years. I've got 2 petitions up in North Woburn, and both of them have gone through hell and back, trying to get them off the ground and rolling. Joe, you know what they've been going through down there. You know, there's all kinds of EPA factors and construction costs and union costs, and it really is an expense. And as for the buildings that we already have down there, I've got beautiful buildings down there, beautifully renovated. 70,000 square feet, they're only occupying 10,000 square feet with this new company that's around. We had a company, like I said, Boston Metals, they'll be leaving. It's a shame. They took over a building that probably lay dormant for 2 or 3 years. And because of, you know, some sort of industrial accident they had in Brazil, they're pretty much shutting down their operation. So we have to keep this all into effect. We also got to consider, yes, our budgets are growing every single year. And it's never going to go down. It's just the cost of doing business. You know, to sit there and just leave a pile of gravel there at $350,000 a year or $270,000 a year for a pile of rock, and we're going to take and ignore the possibility of $4 to $5 million in tax revenue over the course of 5 to 10 years, that doesn't make any business sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. The costs are going up, but yet we're not doing anything to bring in the receipts because we're waiting for, I don't know, the pot of gold, the unicorn that flies in. We had something that was on the hook. We had it all laid out. We spent numerous meetings, dozens, took years, and it imploded, and nothing's moved there since. So I want everybody to consider all of that when we look at this. I would also make the suggestion, those townhouses you have up there, those seem to be a very, very nice component up there. They seem to do very well. I understand there's only 75 of them. And I understand because of the depth and the offset of the property, you probably want to go higher, and I get that. I understand that because you have that height available. But a townhouse component may not be, a bad idea to look into as well. I'm not necessarily, again, sold on the light commercial, coffee shop, so on and so forth. We also have to look at volumes of traffic. Everybody talks about traffic. Well, I can tell you for a fact, if I was 65 years old and I spent $1 million on a townhouse, or I spent $850,000 on a 55 or older condo, and I go down to get my coffee, and I got to deal with people that are trying to race in and race out because they got to go to work, they got to pick the kids up, so on and so forth. There's that hustle bustle, there's that traffic, there's the people going in and out. Look at Woburn Village. We hear complaints about that all the time, the way that was laid out. I wasn't on the council then. It's a pretty thickly settled area over there with a lot of moving parts. And it's all over Facebook. It's all over TikTok. It's all over social media. It's all over all of it. How people are complaining about the traffic, the congestion. They can't even access the restaurants down there. They'll actually take and they'll pull out of there and they'll go to the chateau across the street of the 99s because there's so much traffic. They get aggravated. There's no place to park, so on and so forth. So that's also a consideration, because I can say if I was 65 or older and I was in this nice little neat gated community, I guess you could say gated, I'll say it, I wouldn't want to have to deal with the outside people. I'd want, peace and harmony. As well as I got the Woburn Heights up in North Woburn. Everybody complained about the traffic when that was getting rolled out. They thought there was going to be 300 cars coming in and 300 cars leaving. You'd be hard pressed to find a car going in or out. And I drive up and down 38 all the time. And if you do see a car going in or out, it's a car going in or out. There's no queuing up on that hill. There's no queuing up on Main Street. There's never been a traffic issue over there. So that's something we also want to keep in mind. I think people that are 55 or older or 65, they're homebodies. I think they want to just sit, watch the ball game or whatever. I don't think they really want much. And these days, everything's being delivered anyway. I mean, between Amazon and everything else, everything gets delivered. So they may go down to Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's for the 99-cent, cup of coffee. But I don't see a lot of traffic going in and out of there. So those are just my thoughts for now. I just wish everybody would consider that. Thank you.
Council President Total.
Through the chair to Council DeMambro, couple things. It's not $4 to $5 million. It's 2.8 is what it would add.
When you add it all up.
When you add, but if you can add it all up, you have to add it up. It's not just 270 that we're making now. You have to add that with the 650 plus the 1.5 million for Pulte homes. You add all that up. If you add all that up, and then if you add up what we would get for tax revenue from the new build, it adds about $2.8 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not $4 to $5 million. So 2.8 still is not a small chunk of change. I get it. But also another thing I keep on hearing is what we already approved. This is not the same council today as it was what approved the Vale last time. The landscape is also much different as well. So just because we approved something that was 100,000, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, 100,000 square feet of in life sciences and 62,000 square feet of this, doesn't mean we need to approve something that's similarly or slightly less detrimental. And that's subjective on what, if someone thinks a 55 plus is less detrimental than the life sciences or not. We can argue that point all day long. And I'm not saying I argue or disagree with you. I don't disagree with some sort of proposal there. I do disagree with 504 units. Mm-hmm. I do disagree that I don't think that we should just approve this amendment to get to the next step and really hammer down on a special permit, because again, they do have the appeal rights. They do have the appeal process. and if we deny it, they can appeal it, and we know the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and how they're pushing housing. I'm going to say that they're probably going to side with a petitioner if we deny a housing project, right? So I'm not against this. Again, I just don't think we need to rubber stamp something. There's more discussion here. Councilor Mercer Bruin, who's not here today, along with Council Papalato, these are their wards. I think at the very minimum, a meeting has to be done with these two individuals. And they need to be comfortable with it first, which Council Papalato, based on what you've said already, you're not. So they should be comfortable first with this before we take any action. I think there's a lot more. This is not something that's gonna happen in the next couple weeks. Even the zoning amendment thing. You know, I think this is gonna end up staying in committee, and there's gonna be more discussion with Councilor Tarby and the representatives of that ward before anything happens.
Council approval, if I may answer through the chair?
Sure.
I understand that. And all I said in my closing, sentence was, consider everything that I said. I agree, it's gotta stay in committee. There's a lot more in the wash here that needs to go through. I didn't get it. But everything that I said should be considered.
Yeah, I don't.
And I agree with you, 504 is robust. That's why I mentioned the possibility of a townhouse component, like at the top of the hill. Maybe that should be looked into a little bit further down below. Be garden-style townhouses. So, understandable what you're saying, but I never said I would rubber stamp it. Nor would I say I'd kick it through tonight. I know this is gonna be, through numerous discussions, so I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Councilor Dillon.
Thank you. Through the chair to President Toro, I agree, it should, much more goes into what we have in front of us. That's why I'm not gonna get into everything, but I think it is important to look at what we already approved and see if what's in front of us today is any more detrimental to the community. So to say, what's in front of us tonight is the new zoning, what's already in place is what we okayed. So I think it is a fair comparison to compare what's we're trying to do here tonight and what's already approved, so.
Anybody else? What's the will of the approval? What's it?
Want to just leave a couple other facts here before we close this meeting. So, difference between the approved proposal and the Del Webb, I just want to go through some figures. So the approved proposal has impervious surface of 16.62 acres. The Del Webb, it reduces down to 13.55 acres. The approved proposal provides for 2,475 parking spaces. The Del Webb is 921 spaces. The building footprint, looking at all the footprints, just the footprints, under the approved proposal is 304,935 square feet. The Del Webb, 164,960 square feet. The building massing under the approved project is 1,511,020 square feet, and under the Del Webb, 807,000 square feet. Wastewater generation under the approved project, 128,945 gallons per day. Under the Del Webb, 67,500 gallons per day. Open space, 16.9 acres on the approved and 20 acres on the Del Webb. So this one, that goes for the record as well.
Anything else?
Anything else, Mark?
No, I mean,
Did you want anything, Steve?
I'll just, through the chair. So, again, Del Webb is a very well-known, senior housing, age-restricted brand throughout the United States, throughout the country. And it's very well-known out in the West and out down south in Arizona and Florida and the Carolinas, where there's a lot more land available. And the beauty of the Del Webb is, it's just not an age-restricted community. The real focus of the Del Webb is really on lifestyle. And every Del Webb comes with a certain amount amount of amenities that Del Webb is famous for. So it has resort style clubhouse, pool, active amenities like pickleball courts and tennis courts and bocce, as well as passive amenities, green space, parks, walking networks, green space, more passive recreation. And our office has been here in New England, Pulte Homes of New England. We've been here since 1985, so 30 or so years building all around us, and we've built here in Woburn as well. And we've only built 2 Del Webbs here in Massachusetts. So we built Great Island at Del Webb, in Plymouth, which was 600 homes, and we're currently building a Del Webb called Del Webb Chauncey Lake in Westboro, which is 700 homes. So because New England, this Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts, where we are here, is so land constrained, and 500 units around here is a lot of units. 500 units in other areas of the country is not a lot of units, but here it is. We haven't been able to offer many Del Webbs to the communities and cities. And this particular location is really exciting to us because it has enough land area. It's already cleared. It was approved previously for a much more dense type of development. And we felt it's a perfect opportunity to provide a Del Webb, which will allow us the density with minimizing the impacts to what was already considered there, providing a lot of tax revenue to the city, providing that much needed housing to the region and age-restricted home ownership housing now with an affordable component to the city. And 504 units for us is the perfect amount of units in order for us to be able to build and construct and provide that level of quality of construction and the level of amenities for this development, as well as opposed to a rental apartment community. When the developer is gone, the developer still owns it, and they pay for all the amenities. So a home ownership condo, when Pulte Homes is done building, the homeowners who live there are part of the condo association. They pay the fees to own and operate the condo. And the amenities that we're proposing here with the clubhouse and the pool and the pickleball courts and all the open space areas, it costs a lot to maintain. And having a number like 504 units to join in and pay and maintain those facilities is you need that number in order to do so, because if it's a lot smaller, then the people can't afford it. They don't want to live there because their condo fees are going to be so high. It doesn't make sense. So we tried to find the sweet spot of really being able to provide this Del Webb type of community to the city, and being able to mitigate the number rather than just picking a number because it sounds too high. It feels like the highway on one side, the commercial on the other side, the residential on the other side. It just just seems like a perfect fit to allow and be appropriate for a high density multifamily housing development that we can offer to the city and that the city would find beneficial mutually.
Thank you. Anything else, Joe?
Motion to adjourn.
First,
Motion to keep it in committee.
Yeah, I need a motion for that.
so we'll just leave it in.
Leave it in
Leave it in committee.
Motion to adjourn, just a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll call the Committee on Public Safety and License to order. I'm Councilor Crowell, the chairman. With me on the committee is Councilor Viola, Councilor Demers, who is absent, Councilor Papalato, and Councilor Amaro, who is absent.
Motion to dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes from February 9th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have one matter on the agenda tonight, the renewal or an update for the 2026 bowling alley license, Woburn Bowling Entertainment LLC, 32 Montville Ave. Thank you very much. Right in front there. Right up-
You want to
right at
step
the
right,
top,
right at the top?
Wait.
Yes, yep.
That way we can look eye to eye, right? Me and you.
Oh, that's fine, thank you.
I'll wait for him.
Thank you for coming in. We'd just like an update on the project. It's been dormant for a while, just where do we stand? We spoke once out in the parking lot, probably close to a year ago. Where are we at with what's going on?
Yeah, I feel like I'm good in this spot with that construction now. I already applied for a demo permit. Then when we did the demo, we find some instructions, beams has to be replaced, has to be added. So we open big space, we demo everything. I demoed the whole building interior to the ground. Everything is on a concrete there now. All the demo is complete. They installing some I-beams, big I-beams there. Special company doing that. And I already get the final plans from the architect. But a couple of weeks ago, I decided to replace all the AC and heat system. Everything is getting already ripped off. And I decided to renew everything. And that's delayed another 2 weeks. And the architect promised to give the final plan by Monday. So I'm gonna apply to start the new construction, but the project is still in good shape. We already demo everything. We're doing the I-beams has to be replaced. And all the contracts is already signed with electrician, plumbers, new bowling lines already have date to be installed. The arcade machine have date to be installed. And we planning to open in September, the late October. That's where we are now. Everything is in a good shape now. I'm more happy now. Before I was, things delaying too much, but now everything is sit in place. We signed contract with everybody. We start in the second week of March. Everything is in good place now.
Should I move on the license or leave it here until we have something to license?
It's the committee's call,
So there's not, I mean, we're looking for a renewal of a license for something that doesn't exist. Do we want to leave it in committee until he's ready to come forward to open, or?
I would say to leave it in committee, because it's bare bones, as he's saying, so.
Are we all, somebody give me a motion? Oh, we don't need a
We don't
motion.
need
Just to adjourn.
Motion to
Is there
adjourn.
anything else you want to, we're excited about, as we talked before, we're excited about the project. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about it?
No, I'm very satisfied with everything now. The building department still help a lot. They submit the permit, they approve the thing quick. They do working very well with us, and I feel like this thing is gonna get done in September. Maybe I'll try maybe early. I don't wanna push much. Sometimes things delay. I believe it's gonna be early than September because I'm the builder. I'm the one doing the building construction there, but most of the job is gonna be done to a third-party contract, like electrician, plumbing, the bowling line to be installed, all the AC to be installed. It's gonna be little left on me, and looks like everything lined up to move quick.
So would you mind in May, we could invite you back in May to come in and give us another update?
Sure, yeah,
Very
yeah,
good,
and I think May we're gonna have a lot of progress there.
very good.
I
Thank you.
do hear a lot of excitement about this
Yeah.
around town.
Yeah.
Just for it to open.
And I'm very excited. I'm doing something very nice there compared to what we have in the market now. I'm gonna do something very nice there. Big restaurant. It's gonna be a nice restaurant, a big bar. All my bowling lines, everything is gonna be LED panel, the panel, the TV walls on every single lane. It's gonna be something very nice.
Are you gonna have guards on the lanes so that like people like President Toro when he throws? Bumper alley.
Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for sitting through that last
Okay,
presentation.
no, I appreciate. I'll be able to come in the next meeting. I'm gonna be happy to give you updates.
Thank you.
Very good.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck,
Thank you.
to adjourn.
All right, thank you.
Say second, Billy.
Good luck.
All right, no in favor?
Thank you very
Aye.
much.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.